Hey, man, you're up early today. You gotta move quick now. Wow. Hit by cars. Instead of joining the health club. Too lazy to go to a health club. I want to see the blooms, the flowers in the park. I want to see if it's blooming.
Okay, so we're going to get started. This is part of our Friday Forum series, and we are very, very fortunate to have a legend with us. And this is a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of listening to, and also someone that Mr. Frank Kimbrough's had the pleasure and the honor to play with. You know, he's had a very, very fruitful and very interesting career, very creative, and my hope is that you guys will have some questions about that, but I will get out of the way. So let's please welcome Mr. Paul Motian.
There's a sort of small number of great players in jazz who have the bravery to do things in a kind of plain-spoken way musically, not without humor and wit and things like that, but just to kind of boil things down to the essence and not overplay and not play fast and not play loud. And you know, Jim Hall can do that, and Lester Young could do that, and Paul can do it. He can develop the most lovely idea just with one cymbal and one drum. And he also keeps making the beat different. Each beat is different, is phrased differently than the last one. So he's thinking his way through his playing, and he doesn't waste anything. And that takes a kind of honesty and bravery. And so I think of him in that sort of select company.
I guess I first met him when he was playing with Bill Evans. When I first came to New York, or maybe even before that, I can't remember. You know, many years. So But the trio that Bill had with Scott LaFaro and Paul, and it was an extraordinary trio, obviously.
It was the Bill Evans Vanguard recordings is where, I didn't meet him back then, but I certainly devoured those recordings like a lot of musicians did.
There was a band leader named Jerry Wald who was having open auditions. He was putting a band together to go on tour. And I went to the audition, and Bill was there at that audition. I met him there. And when I walked into the room, Bill was playing the piano, and boy, when I heard that, my ears went up like this. I said, wow, this guy's great. I hope he gets the gig. I hope I get the gig. When he got his own group together, he called me and asked me to play with him.
Bill was he was like a real classical player. He was like a master craftsman, musically correct, harmonically and melodically. It was unbelievable. There wasn't anybody that was even close to him in terms of his ability to really, really know and understand what harmony was and what melody was.
A lot of people, I guess, thought of him as being a real serious musician and stuff, which he was, but he also had an incredible sense of humor. One time I remember we were playing in this place with a bass player named Al Cotton. The three of us were playing, and it was kind of boring. Nothing much was happening. So the bass player, Al, he said, hey man, let's all just drop our pants and play. I said, what, man, are you kidding? He said, no, okay, so we all dropped our pants, man. Pants down by our ankles, and we played. Boy, that music was swinging like a mother.
Paul Motian, who lived through the 50s and the 60s and up to now, seen the excesses, some of which were beautiful, and seen things get pared down again, and have learned the lessons of, breaking all the rules so that they can see what's worth retaining.
When I first came to New York, I found a lot of people trying to play free, but they weren't saying anything. I first met him in 1962. He was way, way beyond where I was. First thing you hear is that this guy is completely authentic. That's not something that you can learn. That's just something you are.
Paul turned all of the conventional wisdom about playing the drums on its head.
What to play and what to not play, the spaces that he would leave open, not playing the bass drum here, not playing anything, for some number of beats and then laying something down.
Well, all the other drummers were very concerned with the fulcrum and the wrist and the fluency with which their arms moved. Paul just kind of picked up a stick and hit something. And that was what was, in the end, what was really wonderful about the way he played was it was really just a guy hitting stuff.
One of my school buddies had an older brother that played drums. It just got to me, I loved what I heard, and I felt that that's what I wanted to do. I started out lessons like reading from drum books, and I realized that that's really not the way, you're playing on a practice pad. It looks like a box with a piece of rubber on it. You're playing on, and I said to myself, gee, I'm not going to play any gigs on this thing. Why don't they give me some lessons on the drums?
The experience, in order to learn how to play and develop your playing, was done by jam sessions. That's what we did, played jam sessions. We didn't memorize licks out of a book. We got together with people and played.
There used to be a place right here on 110th and Central Park West. There was a bar. Used to go in there. They used to have jam sessions. You had to stand in line. Harlem was the place in those days. That's where you went to play.
I worked at Birdland as a cigarette girl and as a hat check girl at Basin Street. I worked at the jazz clubs in the late 50s, and I did it in order to get an education.
There was a kind of fluent scene in New York at that time. One could go from club to club within New York City, never leave town, and work for not too much money, but all the time. Paul and I were both taking advantage of that.
If it's true what he says, this is a guy who left the Bill Evans trio because he felt like it was getting stale. This was This was a group that people loved. This was, you know, then and now by a lot of people seen as like a real pinnacle. But he felt restless within that.
Actually, what happened, I started working with Charles Lloyd around that time, too. And I was just writing about that in my book. I was splitting weekend. One weekend with Charles Lloyd, I'd go out, come back next weekend with Arlo, then next weekend with Charles, went back and forth. The bass player who was playing with Arlo at the time, a guy named Bob Arkin, his brother's the actor Alan Arkin.
And it was through Bob that I got to meet Paul. And in those days, Paul's last name was Motian, not Motion.
You instantaneously liked the way he sounded. Showed very good judgment in that respect.
I went to the manager's office in Midtown and played with Arlo and auditioned, and he liked me and hired me. That's how that came about.
Man, there's supposed to be 1.5 million people here by tonight. Can you dig that? New York State Thruway is closed, man.
Woodstock.
I remember that. Yeah, that was unreal.
Yeah, we got there early in the day. We didn't know what was going on. It was just another gig. But I guess we knew it was a festival, some kind of festival. We had to take a helicopter to get in there because can't remember why.
It was a strange feeling because the Vietnamese War was still going on at the time, and I kind of associated helicopters with that kind of thing.
We're flying into this place, and I looked down, I saw all these hundreds of thousands of people. I couldn't believe it. So we got there in a day. We were there the whole day. Pretty soon it was night, and we were the next to the last band to play.
All I remember is really being on stage, and I don't remember much of that because it was crazy.
Arlo had drunk about 7 bottles of champagne before he went on, not knowing he was going to have to hit soon.
I was not in any shape to be doing a gig for 50 people, let alone 500,000 people. You know, it's the way things happen.
It was pouring rain out. There was a tarp, like a canvas covering above my head, filling up with water, and I was thinking, gee, I hope we get the fuck out of here before it falls on me and stuff.
After that, I never indulged in anything before a gig. After that, that was it for me.
That was that, and but we couldn't get out. The next morning, a car came in, somehow got through the crowd, picked us up around 9 or 10 in the morning, and we went to the next gig. I think it was up in Newport somewhere.
And you didn't have any qualms about not playing jazz?
Shit, no. What for? You know, I needed the money, I needed the work. I had fun. I like cowboy music, man. I wanted to be a cowboy when I was a kid.
I mean, I've always thought about music that way, that there shouldn't be these it shouldn't be put in these boxes. Music is the place where we can really go wherever we want. There's enough boundaries just trying to walk down the street, you know, you don't have to have it when you're playing.
I've always been a musical omnivore in terms of genres. You know, it's like I kind of follow in the path that Duke Ellington talked about. There's only 2 types of music, good and bad.
You play with a lot of great bass players. Who was your favorite?
Well, you can't dismiss Oscar Pettiford, man. I feel so lucky that I had the chance to know him and play with him. I learned a lot, I really did. We went down south, 1957 by bus. We played at the Florida A&M, played in Virginia. And at that time, I mean, it was incredible, the whole scene about, you know, blacks over here, whites over here, don't go here, you can't go here, you can go. Incredible scene. That was a trip, man. There was still signs up of drinking fountains and toilets and stuff for colored, for white. There used to be a black musicians union and a white musicians union. The musicians were integrated before everybody else was, I think. Oscar Pettiford hired me, Coleman Hawkins hired me, Thelonious Monk hired me. I don't remember any scenes about this guy's black, this guy's white, this guy's that shit, this shit. I mean, that was a shock, you know.
We know that you're known as one of the most prominent drummers to kind of move away from that strict time. What influenced you to do that?
I think it started with Bill Evans. Bill Evans and Scott LaFaro, that trio. I think that was the first time that I started to hear differently, and I started just to play more with what was going on, with the music that was going on, and what the other cats were playing, and trying to play with that. In other words, just like a symphony orchestra is playing, they're not playing strict time. I'm playing with the melody, and just that sort of started me doing that, and that was, I guess, late 50s, early 60s, I got into that. And then I started playing with Paul Bley and Gary Peacock, and they were more into like opening up the time.
When he played in time, it was the best time of anybody that I've ever played with. I mean, it was exact from where it started to where it ended. So, I mean, it's, clearly he didn't start playing rubato because he had bad time. It was, he could do that better than anybody. I mean, that's the kind of misconception about Paul, is that he's kind of this free drummer. But to me, he was almost pre-Bebop.
I did a week with Chick Corea. Chick Corea was playing the music of Bill Evans. And there was Eddie Gomez on bass and Paul. And Paul was playing like he did back in the 60s. He didn't play the way he played with his own band. He was swinging. He was playing more traditional, as if you will. I don't really like that word. And so people that heard him was like, wow, man, I had no idea that he could still do that.
Paul was a supreme listener. He really heard what was going on around him and did, in fact, play in response to his environment.
Deeply feeling and deeply being about the value of personal expression. That's how I see Paul and what he was about.
The very first jazz concert I ever went to was Charles Lloyd. Paul was playing drums, and Keith Jarrett was playing piano, and Ron McClure was playing bass. For me, Paul is sort of part of this, the birth of me becoming aware of the music that changed my life.
I started playing with Keith in 1968, 69. I was playing with Keith. I met him in 1966, I think. And we started playing together, and then he had the trio. We went to Europe. Dewey joined us in 1972. We started at, first gig was at Slugs down the Lower East Side, where 2 days before, Lee Morgan's wife came in and shot him, killed him in there. Boy, the vibe in there was pretty weird. Wow.
The sound of that cymbal, when you hear the drums being played like they were the violin, it's encouraging. That's what motivates me to keep playing, is to be able to communicate in that way.
He leaves you wanting more, which I think is, that's what great performances do. They don't give you absolutely everything, but they let you know that there's a kind of very precious core of musicality here.
Hearing him with Keith Jarrett's quartet, with Charlie, Hayden, and Dewey Redman in the early 70s was, for me, like really some inspiring moments to be in a room with this music that was being created.
A drummer that could play just about anything and make me like it. And particularly for Escalator Over the Hill, I liked that a lot. I called him once and I said, I have a gig, I'm working with a big band on this day next month, can you do it? And he said, I don't do gigs with other people anymore. No offense, but I want to be a leader, and I know the only way that I can become a leader is to stop being anything else.
Taxi? He's lopsided.
Who's lopsided?
The doorman. Oh! Go ahead, take that one. I'll get the next one. Go ahead.
That's for her.
Go ahead. Oh, that's for her. Okay.
This for you.
This for me?
Come on in.
Great, okay, man. So you're gonna be a star in the movie, man.
Hey, we all together. This is love.
Really?
If you didn't know, now you know, Paulie.
Oh, this mate.
Don't leave nothing behind. Make sure you check your seats before you get out.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Take your time now.
Yeah, all right. 1976, I guess. And I started writing music and started putting together my own groups. Yeah, so from 76 until now, then just with my own bands, started doing stuff.
You remember the first time you went into the Vanguard with the trio?
No, I don't. Someone asked me that. Maybe it's been 10 years ago, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Paul, when did he come into my real life? I guess it was with Bill Frisell and Joe Lovano and Paul. This trio evolved through who's doing, I don't know, probably Paul. But they all agreed that whatever they were doing was what they wanted to do, and it was different than anybody else was doing.
I guess it was around 1981 when Bill and I first started playing with Paul. In more of a quartet setting. Mark Johnson was playing bass at the time.
I had met Joe briefly a couple years before that in Boston when he was still playing with Woody Herman. And I remember playing in a bar in Boston with a band, and this big guy walks on stage and just blew everybody away.
And right around that time, Mark went with Stan Getz and had some other gigs. So Ed Schuler joined the band.
I sort of lucked out getting the gig. I think he wanted Mark Johnson or something. He hired me. So we'd go to his house on Central Park West, go into his living room, and we'd rehearse. This was in the old days when people actually rehearsed.
Not long after that, we got Billy Drews to play. So there was the quintet.
Billy's from the original band. Yeah, we're in the original band. That's right.
Okay, ready?
No, ready.
1,
2,
2.
We had a tour, and we call it the Disaster Tour. And that was our last, that was the last tour with the quintet. It was just a disaster. This guy promised all these gigs, and it turns out nothing was happening. The next thing that happened is that we had another tour planned, and he just said, I can't afford it. I'm just going to go with the trio.
Since then, Bill and I have experienced a lot of beautiful musical settings with Paul on our own recordings, as well as numerous recordings with different quintets, and then the trio, which emerged, I think, around 1984 or so.
I can almost picture the stage and the gig, and we're playing, and I don't think he said to stop, or it just happened that Pepper wasn't playing and Ed wasn't playing for some, I don't know what happened.
Jim and Eddie dropped out, and left Paul and I and Bill in a trio excursion that just took off in another direction that we had never really been before. And the music just carried us somewhere.
The music sort of went in a different way, or it just felt great. And Paul has mentioned that as the moment, that was where he thought, wow, maybe we could actually really do this as a band.
The Lovano Motian Frizzell trio really stood out for me as the weirdest band that would ever get booked in the Vanguard. I think that's been superseded by something else at this point. But it seemed to me for a period of maybe, almost a decade that was true.
But now that's turned out to be a yearly event. We play every year around late August, early September. We do 2 weeks, Village Vanguard. That's been going on for 10 years or more.
So we go to the Vanguard, play for 2 weeks, and then a year goes by, and then Tuesday afternoon, I'll come in there with my stuff, and Paul will come with his drums, and we'll set it up and say, hey, and then about 9:15, Joe walks in, and we just walk on and start playing. There's no sound check, no rehearsal, you just pick up where you left off last time. It just keeps on going and going. It's an amazing thing.
Within the conception of the trio, the music is so free and open, but yet structured in a way where each piece has its own mood and feelings. Paul is a fantastic composer and a wonderful leader to play with because he gives us a lot of room to play with our own interpretation and bring in our own histories within the music. The trio, for me, is one of the foundations of everything that I do within my own bands. It's given me such beautiful support and freedom to develop ideas and to put things together.
Billy Taylor was here. He was so
Yeah.
thrilled.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
I have known Billy since the first day I got into it.
Wow. Wow.
Years into 1948, 1944.
Wow. Wow.
Putting Hank and Paul together was real magic. But during that period, Hank was in his 80s. Right. And Paul was playing with an elder cat that he loved his whole life, who influenced Bill Evans. Bill was a disciple of Hank.
Okay. Get set. That's a film called Get Set.
about 30 of them over here a couple days ago. They're all out here getting the sun.
What kind are they?
I don't know. Being underwater.
My daughter has those little ones, you know?
Yeah, no, I saw some really twice as big as that. Some of them.
Gosh.
All over the place. Wow.
Wow.
Wow, they're
You're
on
a kid.
camera. You going tomorrow? No. Really? I don't know. No, I doubt it, man, because you see all the people in there now? Yeah. That's a lot of people for a Friday, man. I never saw that. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be like 70, 80 degrees, man. This place is going to be mobbed. Yep. Listen, I'm going to leave my house at 10. If you can meet me at 10, we can ride down together. Okay. Okay? Very cool. See you. All right. We're going to 53rd Street and 10th Avenue.
What are you doing at 53rd and 10th?
What am I doing at 53rd? We're recording, man. No, today we're mixing. Finished recording. Beautiful record, man. Really happy with it. Bobo Stenson, piano. Andrews Your Means playing bass. Play me A again.
Oh, stop, stop.
Just as simple. Yeah, go on.
The previous piece actually started more somehow convincing. This piece already started shaky, and it got itself in the middle of the piece, but then towards the end it was shaky again. You didn't know how to end.
Exactly right.
Okay, so maybe Anders, there would be something for you to play also to. How about an introduction?
Good idea.
Because if the groove is not from the beginning there, like definite, then it somehow it doesn't. It's not clear where the piece wants to go.
Actually, they say in Norway, this is in Norwegian. They say that if you are good in reading scores, in reading music, you read like a moose.
Yeah.
So this is
Score elk.
Score elk. Score elk.
What is a moose got to do? And we say, in Swedish we say,
read like a fox.
Fox.
You know.
What do you say in English?
Read like a motherfucker.
Yeah. That animal we don't have in Europe. We have foxes and mooses, but no motherfuckers.
Lloyd.
Kill, man. We just
Hey.
realized that we've known you since the beginning of time.
Beginning of no time.
Yeah, man, no, because I remember because when you were in Sweden with this, so you know this guy.
Oh, yeah. I got to give him a big hug.
Okay, goodbye.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. Good. How nice to see you.
You know, when I first started studying piano, trying to learn piano and stuff, Steve gave me all these early beginning books that helped me a lot. Yeah. It's when you were living on 8th Avenue.
Wait, we were doing dee-ba-doo, boo-doo, dee-boo, wee-ba-doo, ba-doo, boo-da, dee-doo, dee-doo, boo-ba-doo. This can be fast, this can move. Da, 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 You can do it slow. Yeah.
So sing it one more time, please.
It's nice. It's never been played on the piano.
Good.
Anytime I've ever done it, it's never been on the piano. So it's be nice to do it your way. Oh, I forgot about you, man. Hey, how you doing? Can we get a taxi?
You want a taxi?
Yes, please.
Your wife?
My wife and the husband. My wife and the husband. This guy, my man. Okay. Yeah, I'll wait here. I forgot about you, man. I really did. It's a good thing you came up because I was just split.
You were really
Yeah. And then like about, halfway through the night, I said, gee, I forgot about Michael. Should give him a call. I didn't even say anything to Gary or anything, man. You might get arrested. We want to go to 44th Street between 8th and 9th. Okay, right here. Good. Did he put you in the movie? Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna put you in the movie, look. Oh, he's one of them. Okay, he's gonna send you a check. Thank you. Did I tell you about Marilyn Crispell? No. That Mark Elias is on that. That sounds really good. Mark sounds really good on that. What about you? I'm me, Yeah. But it's really nice. I think it's the best work Marilyn's done. And Manfred is really, really happy with it.
Yeah, so she hit the card.
But the timing of it seemed like the timing sounded good. So we just want to get you to play at the same tone.
Sure, I'm not set up to punch it yet. But you were definitely playing harder at the take in order to match. I think you need to.
That sounds more like it there.
All right, let's try that.
That's great.
Yeah. I don't need to make the same thing the original.
Nothing. I've got.
No, that was great.
You did it.
Paul, he's a poetic man. His way of listening to others and contributing to the music, always melodically, thinking melodically in line, in phrasing, in dynamics, in colors. Wonderful.
Now we're gonna be on page 6 with this stuff.
Look at your set. Your personal.
Yeah.
Wherever you play, these drums go with you.
I'm home. I'm in New York. I use this, man. If I have to travel somewhere, get on a plane or something like that, I'm not taking it.
All right. Do you bring cymbals or anything?
No.
Nothing.
No.
And
Can't, man. I mean, you know what the scene is at the airports with that shit now? Come on, Michael. Cool it.
Be thankful to you.
Okay. See, I can't keep my big mouth shut.
There you go, man. I'm like, I remember that stuff.
Man, I wish I could be like Thelonious. Don't say nothing. Dave Holland told me he played a whole week with him at the Vanguard. Monk never said one word the whole week. And Swallow told me another time he was sitting with Monk before they went on stage. And all Monk said was, you know the routine.
He played with Monk as well. We compared notes about that. He did a week in Boston, I think, with Monk.
When was that? That was 1960. We played at a place called Storyville with Scott LaFaro and Charlie Rouse. It was a hotel, and the jazz club was downstairs. And I wasn't familiar with Monk's music at that time. I was scared to death. So a couple of times Monk got up and started dancing around. And when he did that, I figured everything must be okay. He must be swinging. He's happy, you know. But then one night, we're waiting for him to play, and he stood up and he started pacing the bandstand. And he turned around, he looked at me, and he pointed to me, and he said, drums. So I got it, man. So I better do something, right? So I did, you know, I played. So I learned a lot that time, man. He was a wonderful, wonderful person to play with.
They were birds of a feather. They were equally aggressively eccentric.
Maybe only two. Let's see.
that porno cam right here when I'm getting dressed. I'm taking my pants off. I'm closing the door. You can't be taking no film of me doing that shit.
He decided he didn't want to fly anymore, and I can certainly understand that.
Through the years, we've toured Japan and Europe and the States numerous times. A lot of the tours were long, too, 6-week tours. And there was a period there in the 80s where we went to Europe maybe 3 times in a year for different 6-week periods.
Yeah, we were always in and out of airplanes together, and it was mainly airplanes, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, I won't get on an airplane. Forget that. You couldn't give me $1 billion to get on an airplane. I'm serious. You give me $1 billion, I will not get on an airplane. I just did so much of that, man, so much touring. Wow, year after year after year after year. Planes, airplanes, hundreds of airplanes. Terrible, that's terrible. Touring is a horrible life.
I mean, imagine, you get up in the morning and you pack up all your stuff and you get a cab or rent a car or something to an airport, and you get on a plane with all your stuff and you're fighting to get the bass on, to get the drums on, to get the guitars in, and then you fly somewhere and you get off the plane and you have to get to another hotel and you unpack and then you go to the gig and then you do the gig and then you pack up again and you go back to the hotel and the next morning you get into the car and you go to the airport.
Nowadays, it's impossible. And I was getting stopped. The last couple of years, I was getting stopped. And one time, one guy stopped me. He said, "Hey, did you just get off the plane from Morocco? Where's your parents from? Or where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. Are you a citizen? Blah, blah, blah. Wow. What do you got in the bag? Oh, my God. What are those? Those are symbols. Oh, yeah? What is that for?" Man, really hassled me. And it's just a horrible, touring is horrible.
All we knew were airports and taxi cabs and hotels. That was it. That was our whole life. And it was that way for years. We didn't even know where we were. We didn't care where we were.
It's great that he was able to do that and just to stay on Central Park West and then be driven or take a train or whatever, a bus or taxi.
Now people say the Vanguard is your club.
Well, I'm playing there often now. I'm playing there about once every 2 months with a different band of my own.
It would seem like he would be there once a month with one of his mini ensembles. And I was all ears, and sometimes I would come back, successively, to hear how things had developed over the course of days, or throughout the week.
Right now I'm in there with Bill Frisell and Joe Lovano, which started out to be my trio. Now it's a cooperative trio. Everyone's a leader. Everyone contributes.
There's something about that room. It's like, it's so perfect for this trio. It's like I think of that room, the Vanguard, it's more like an instrument itself. The size and the scale of it and the sound, and we don't have, I play electric guitar, but Joe doesn't, there's no mics or monitors.
The acoustics are really great. Drums sound wonderful in there. Can't beat it, man.
The sound fills the room the way, if you play a string on a violin and the body of the violin is vibrating and the sound is moving around in there. That's what the whole room feels like that to me. There's a sound in the room itself, but then there's also that definite vibe. You just look at the pictures on the wall. You can feel that things happened in there, really beautiful things happened in there.
It seems like every couple of months I'm in there with a different group. So maybe that's why you're talking about it's my club. But it's I'm happy that it's I'd take it. I'll take it. It's a great club.
The best fun is in the kitchen, where everyone is not allowed to go. The green room is the kitchen, which is the dressing room and my office, and where the musicians congregate in between shows with some of their friends and other musicians. A lot of the action takes place over there.
Playing for him was, a very engaging, a deeply, involved enterprise. And so when he came off the stage, he didn't suffer people, that lightly, who got into his space when he wasn't feeling it.
Stay well, stay healthy, stay together. Okay.
I don't know what to say. I'm probably gonna regret saying this, but I expected more. I'm studying jazz myself. It was like spaghetti without noodles.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We've been here for 6 fucking nights, man. We played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
I don't know.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11
I know.
sets. Where the fuck were you?
I thought you guys had balls.
You got a lot of nerve to say that. Get the fuck out of here, man.
I thought you guys had balls, man. I buy your CDs all the time. Fucking travel all around and try to find you.
Oh, fuck you. Where were you, man? Where were you? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Critic has to
Sunday?
be accepted, man. Critic has to be accepted.
Next week, we're here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Come on down. I'll buy you a fucking drink.
Okay.
The
critic has to be accepted, man.
Didn't play enough. You got a lot of nerve. You ought to drop fucking dead, man. Idiot. Didn't play enough, he said. Because he got a nerve.
Lucky we didn't do the 37-minute special.
The jokes are back there. The serious music is up here on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great Osby on saxophone. Masabumi Kikuchi on piano. Larry Benedict on bass. Thank you. Here comes a birthday cake. Lorraine Gordon, ladies and gentlemen.
Why are you here tonight? Why are you here, Paul?
I don't know why I'm here.
I don't know. Paul, it's your birthday. It doesn't hurt.
My birthday was last year.
I know, but we didn't have the money last year. We just got it. Blow, blow, man.
Wow. I thought they wouldn't let you in here, you said. They wouldn't?
They're still looking for the money for the check the last time I walked out. You're so old.
Yeah. I thought you were in California.
I was. I mean, I was going to be, but I'm going tomorrow instead. Because I wouldn't miss this moment.
Happy birthday.
I know.
Good. There's some good advice.
Oh, yeah?
Good
advice. I need that, man. Everyone says come to the kitchen and have some cake.
Yeah, because you're not serving it here. What do you think? This is a kitchen?
I thought we got hamburgers.
This is a. Well, they are. They're in there. And look at the date on them.
Man.
Congratulations.
You guys are out of your mind, man. Look at this guy. Billy Drews was just asking for you.
Birthday.
Go look around the corner here.
Joe was stuck in the studio. He said he said I should give you a kiss on the forehead.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah.
Yo! Billy, how you doing? The whole gang's here, right?
The whole gang is here.
Can I push you into the
No, I'm not going in there. Are you kidding?
This is delicious.
Really? I can't eat that. I'll have a heart attack.
You should have it.
No, I'm going to give it a heart attack?
Yeah, of course.
How you doing? I'm good. Yeah. Running around. I was just mixing this next thing. Okay.
Well, you know, the Vanguard isn't the only club in New York. I've played at other clubs in New York. I've been doing Blue Note once a year with Bill Frisell and Ron Carter. There's Birdland and Jazz Standard, and I play in those places once in a while.
Hey, where you going, man? You not gonna join?
Yes.
Yeah?
You met him, no? John Lucas from Boston.
Okay, man.
No. Yes, from Australia. I play.
Okay, man. All right, man. This is smoke.
That's ashes with tobacco.
Okay, let me try. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Motian.
Hey.
Been too long, man. I forgot what it felt like. That feels amazing.
So where's this bass come from, man? I always want to hear a bass story.
Well, I had a friend in Paris who was letting go of a couple basses, so I like this one. It's a Jacquet, Xavier Jacquet, made in about 1840. I had the neck moved out from the body a little bit. It's got a nice sound.
I guess I met Paul in, must have been 1993, because I was playing with Steely Dan. He got in touch with me about doing a tour in Europe, and Steely Dan was going to go back out. So I had to choose between going to Europe with Paul or going back on the road with Steely Dan. I remember at the time thinking that I was definitely committing career suicide, but I really wanted to play with Paul. So I turned Steely Dan down. And so 1993, I must have been 22, you know. So that, you know, shows you how excited I was to, you know, to get the chance to play with him.
You cannot play that way without a really deep understanding of the whole history of what he came through. And that was kind of the most surprising thing the first time I played with him. I should have known that, but to feel it, to feel his sense of time and to feel the historical significance of what he played was super striking.
His writing and his being, the way that he would talk to people, the way that he would value what you did, the suggestions that he would make on the bandstand.
Paul always kind of had his ear to the ground, and you know, he was asking who was around, and you know, when I first started with the Electric Bebop Band, it was with Brad Shepik and Kurt Rosenwinkel and Steve Swallow, and then Chris Cheek joined, and it seemed like it radiated out from there.
There was sort of like a Electric Bebop pool of musicians.
I probably first saw the Electric Bebop group in the mid-90s. One of the things I liked about it, it was just slightly perverse, the way they recast these Monk tunes and things like that. A little perverse artistically, but not disrespectful. One of the funniest things that he told me once was that his initial idea with that band was to destroy bebop. And that sounded so funny coming from somebody who had played it. And so that's what that band did, you know, mostly by the roles he assigned to the players, by the instrumentation.
Paul seemed to really value interesting voices on their instruments. Combination of rootedness and reaching forward.
The melodies that he'd come up with and the way that he would put it together were so unique and unusual.
I got to see how Paul created and worked with his music. And that was a learning experience, and it was beautiful. I loved working with Paul's music.
Songs like art pieces, they're worked out, you know, you can tell, but there's something so that breathes.
It was free, but it still had some cohesive kind of organizing force, and it came from these really pretty simple but off-the-wall melodies that he would write.
He would write music that was funny. I mean, that's pretty hard to do.
I mean, or to make and still have it be good.
I always show his charts to my students because I feel like a lot of them get, trapped in a certain kind of way of hearing music or definitely playing music, but even hearing how music can go.
I love how many pieces of music we would play in a set. And I don't know anybody who can play standards and Monk tunes and then offset them like he did with his compositions.
Kind of folk music in a way. He's Armenian, so a lot of his music was so sort of folk orientated. And he wrote these beautiful ballads.
I think what he really meant was, it's been done and done so well. And so it's got so many layers of, wax on top of it now that he wanted to sort of break through the wax somehow. That's how I interpreted what he meant.
He brought out our imaginations, and that's the thing I think we're all so grateful about.
It was, in effect, a finishing school for some of the musicians who turned out to be the most productive and influential guys of their generation. And they were, by and large, I guess, 40 or 50 years younger than Paul.
There was a new generation of musicians, who were just dying to play with Paul. So if they had any kind of good gig, maybe they'd ask him to be a guest, and he'd say yes a lot.
Tell me what you do. I don't know. I'm just the drummer in the band.
What's the band?
Bill McHenry Quartet. Ben Monder's playing guitar, and Reed Anderson's the bass player.
Paul was a hero of mine a long time before I ever played with him. I thought that playing with Paul would be so easy because I had listened to him for so long. Although it is easy to play with him because he's such a master, he's not there trying to help you out in any way. He's there just going and doing his thing that's just so strong. And the only way to really hang in there is just to be strong yourself. I think that's one of the reasons that so many young musicians go through his bands and end up on the other side as world-class musicians, is having that experience of the kind of energy that he creates. It makes you a stronger player.
Every night, every moment playing with him was about, let's play together and make something magical happen. That, as maybe obvious as that might be, that's not normal.
You're not taking that on the subway, are you?
Yeah.
Man, you're gonna get busted.
So the Wall Street Journal had a review?
The one in the Wall Street Journal was mostly about Joe because he did an interview. But the one Thursday was from Tuesday night. It's really good. He called me idiosyncratic. I don't even know what that means.
C train, Brooklyn bound, next stop 72nd Street, next lift, close the doors, please.
No.
How's it going?
Come on.
Move. Don't pay attention to him. All I have to do is call Steve, man, and say Afghan chicken, he comes right down.
I was telling Steve, I'm thinking about adding a third guitar player. Steve don't like that idea. Nobody likes that idea except me, but I might do it, man. I mean, even like on some of those recordings, sometimes I think the guitars are lost. I mean, you don't think so, and some other people don't think so, but I do. Saxes seem to be so strong all the time, and the guitars play, and it's like the level of everything seems to go down. I want to keep the level like equal with the saxes. Without having the guitars turn up. I mean, it could happen by you guys turning up, but I don't want you to turn up. Then it sounds kind of, I don't know, not real. There's a third guy in there. I don't know. Just like, just play a chord. I don't know. I'm so curious about it. I might fucking try.
He had this kind of cockeyed vision to bring seemingly unlikely combination of musical elements together in a room, and a kind of faith that his judgment would prevail and something good would happen.
And that kind of willingness to really rely on nothing but your own aesthetic instincts. You know, I think that was maybe the biggest thing that I learned from him, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of us also got from him.
It's just his mind, you know, his thought about music and life. And so nobody can copy it. Nobody can follow it. Because that's what music's supposed to be, right? It's a through personal experience.
Who, again, it was like entering a whole other universe, a whole other world.
I had worked with Masafumi in Japan, and then he wanted to do some things here.
He said, you know, we would have drummer. And but, you know, we need drummer like who can play like a rubber.
He said the only drummer that he could think of that he was even remotely interested in was Paul Motian. I said, oh yeah, give him a call.
So he said, you know, he knows only one drummer who can do this. So it was Paul.
Not a lot of people hired Pooh because he wasn't easy to, it wasn't like hiring a normal side person. I remember, you know, like Motian would say, all right, so Pooh, you play the melody, and then Chris, you take a chorus after that. And then Pooh would start playing, and about 10 minutes later, I just wasn't sure if I had heard the melody or not, you know, so maybe eventually I just kind of come in. Paul really enjoyed that kind of thing. I mean, he didn't know if the melody had been played yet either, you know, but so he was reacting to whatever he was hearing and willing to take it from there.
I always appreciated that Paul loved playing with him so much because obviously he had played with the greatest piano players and that he knew what the piano can do. And I think that's one of Paul's brilliant things was that he wanted to create an atmosphere foremost for himself that was creative and inspiring. And then it would be that for everybody else too, I mean the musicians and the audience. But foremost, he was looking for an environment that would inspire him. So he didn't want to hear anything he'd heard before, not really.
These guys were mystics to me, you know? There's stuff that you can't call it anything. And that's something I want to aspire to.
Drum music once.
These are Paul Motian's drums. They're on all of the famous Bill Evans, Live at the Vanguard, studio dates, Keith Jarrett's recordings. He loved these drums. When he gave them to me, he said, "Oh, I played those with Coleman Hawkins," and was really animated at that moment. Anyway, it's been a thrill and treasure for me to have these beautiful spiritual drums in my life all these years, and I try to play a little drum music every day.
Paul's tune drum music, it lets the drums speak. It, often, we'd play the head and then Paul would solos. I got it.
If we just play it one time through, like one chorus, which, doobie 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 doo da,
When you would play it, it was as if you were playing it for the first time every time. It had this kind of effect.
It was played differently every time anybody ever played it. It was completely wide open.
That's one chorus. So sometimes we would just play like that as a theme.
Sometimes you'd play the head and he would play a drum solo that will last forever. Sometimes you would play the head and he'd shout, "Go Malaby," or "Go Monder," or somebody like that. And it would turn into a 7-minute piece.
Paul played with such an amazing melodic sound that when you hit that last note, boom, you knew that was the last note.
And by far, it's the hippest break tune anybody's ever played in jazz. And yeah.
Paul was so strong all through the 70s, and I think we thought he was just going to live forever. At least I did.
I would go to see him at the Vanguard every time that he was there, and he was always exploring.
My 70th birthday here, and I wanted Paul to come, and I wanted to play with him and Gary Peacock. That would have been another thrill. But then when the date came up, he was not able to to come and do it. So Brian Blade came and played. Yeah, I miss him, but I'm so glad that we had this 2 weeks together. It was like a real high point in my life. And Further Explorations as a trio album is one of my own personal favorite recordings I've ever done.
The time that I spent with him was such a huge part of what my world had been, and to have him suddenly not physically there, it was kind of terrifying, you know, like, wow, what am I gonna... And I just didn't know if I'd be able to play that music anymore.
His music is timeless and it's very folk-like. From his experiences and having relationships with this amazing multicultural world, and it came out in all of his tunes, and it gave us a chance to explore the feelings that he was feeling and laying down, taking us in directions within the music.
I played live with him twice. And the second one was his last gig. I've always wanted to play with Paul because, you know, he was Paul.
Good morning and welcome to Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet. This is your host, Cindy McGurl, in your local radio show about jazz drummer Paul Motian. And today I have a special guest in the studio, and that is filmmaker Michael Kelly, who is working on a documentary about Paul Motian. He just really turned all of us on to the idea of a creative life and doing what you wanted to do and just really loving everything. He used to visit us pretty regularly and always send postcards while he traveled all over the world. It was a really inspiring lifestyle that he had. So this is the archive, where I have all of Paul's stuff. And I've just been sorting through it and organizing it. Pretty much everything in here came from his apartment. So this is the latest project that I've been working on. It's the compositions of Paul Motian, Volume 1. When I filed and organized his written compositions, it just really made me feel I needed to get the music out there, because he never published anything when he was alive, although he thought about it. When Joe Lovano came by the apartment after Paul passed away, and he showed me this symbol, and he said that this is the symbol that is on like every recording that Paul made, pretty much. Every single one, from Bill Evans' days up till, you know, his last recordings. And I guess it was cracked, and Paul had them cut it out and sand it, so it's got like it's got a real special sound. But anyway, when people come to the archive, only a few people have, they're just in awe of this. They're very excited to hold it and get their picture taken with it.
At the time that we met, he called himself Paul Motian, and before it was Motian, and then it was Motian again.
So the family name is Motian, that's how it's been pronounced. Paul, it was all Armenian, and both his mother and father immigrated from Turkey. If you hear early recordings of Paul, you'll hear an announcer at a club introduce him as Paul Motian. In the early to mid-70s, people started calling him Paul Motian, and then he thought about it and he said, hey, wait a minute, Motian, that's a pretty good name for a drummer. So he sort of adopted it himself.
Both fit very well. Motian is a very distinguished sounding name, but Paul is also in motion. He used to be in motion all the time. So Paul is Paul Motion. It's perfect also because he was in motion, in waves he was going in the music and as a personality.
His force of personality was extraordinary. I'm sure you've gotten that from any number of people you've talked to.
He had such a lightness about him, even though he was kind of a gruff New Yorker in some ways.
Paul was always hip, and he wasn't trying to be hip. He just was hip.
I loved his crusty, that thing, that old New York tough guy thing.
He spent his life in work in pursuit of art, in pursuit of truth, in pursuit of veracity, and in a milieu of American culture, African American born, all American contributed to world of jazz.
He can be self-deprecating, he can be cranky, but you know, everything always comes out followed by this kind of burst of machine gun laughter.
He would have been horrified by half of the things we've said today.
Yeah, no, he would have.
Because he was so down to earth, he just wouldn't put up with anything like glorifying him or complimenting him. Those things weren't welcome. I can see him right over there right now, and he's saying, "Oh, come off."
Come on, James, let's go jog in the park. I go in the park a lot, mostly every day. Yeah, I used to run in there. Now I walk. I like the park. I like coming in here. I think I know about every square inch of this place. I remember one time coming out of the subway years ago, and after being in the Village for a while, and I came out of the subway near the park, and I noticed how the air was much cleaner. It seemed cleaner because of the park, man, because of all the trees and the greenery. It's nice around here. I love it. You should check out the panoramic view in the reservoir when we get over there. See this? Look at this. It's funny, you know, music is an incredible thing, man. It has really powers that you can't imagine that it's actually happening or that it's really true, but it is. I've heard stories about music, you know, making people happy or curing them. This cat comes up to me, he looks to be around, I don't know how old he is, but he's not old. I guess he might be in his 40s or so. Anyway, he came up to me one night and he said, wow, you know, he said, I have cancer and I'm in the 4th stage of cancer. And he said, your music just really inspired me and everything. He said, I think your music extended my life 2 years. Another time I was in a hospital and I was in the waiting room, and all of a sudden I heard over the speaker system in the waiting room, I heard this music, and I said, gee, that sounds familiar. It sounds like Joe Lovano. Oh, wow, that's one of my CDs. And then I talked to some of the nurses there, and they said, oh, yeah, while we've been playing your CDs, we've been playing this music, the whole vibe of the room has changed. Everybody's like feeling like a little better. There's more smiles, and people are more friendly, and that knocked me out, man. I said, that was great.
Wow. Imagine that.
Some pretty impressive history, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm lucky, man. I was in New York at a good time, good period. I played with some of the greatest jazz players in the world. It's really lucky. Oscar Pettiford. Wow. Played at Small's Paradise in Harlem with Oscar Pettiford, 1957, before I played in the Vanguard. Wow. Coleman Hawkins. I played with Coleman Hawkins, Roy Eldridge, a couple of weekends out in Long Island. Thelonious Monk. I got to play with Thelonious Monk for a week in Boston. And down here at a place called The Open Door. It was in the mid-50s. Wow. I was lucky. I feel I was lucky. Was at the right place at the right time.
And several of Paul's compositions. And I got familiar with working with Paul to see how he... That's okay. Put it back up. That was the light that dropped. That's good. You keep that, don't edit that out. That's real. Paul would want that in.
Did I see any action when I was in the Navy? Well, actually, you know, I volunteered. I mean, that was a Korean War, man. I mean, I would have been drafted. And I had friends. I saw people coming back in body bags and frostbite and no arms. And so somebody told me that if you volunteer in the Navy, they have a music school in Washington, D.C., and if you volunteer, you'd be guaranteed to do that. You could be a musician in the service. So that's why I volunteered, and I did, and that's what it was. No, I didn't see any action. I was in the band.
I've known him for 40 years.
I know.
See what happens, man? Oh,
There is
Father
no-
Time's a motherfucker, boy. We played for 9 days at a club in Stockholm called Club Ernst, named after Hemingway, which was Keith, bass player named Gus Nemeth. That was my first time in Europe, 1969.
I mean, for me, the influences were Kenny Clark, Max Roach, Art Blakey, Billy Joe Jones. Max Roach was very kind to me, man. One time I was playing with Tony Scott at the Half Note, and I had another gig, so I was late for that gig, but my drums were on the stage, and when I walked in, Max Roach was playing on my drums. That thrilled me too. I said, man, Max, the great Max Roach playing my drums, wow. And at that time, I used to tune the drums really taut. I mean, the heads were really tight, man. You couldn't fake anything. You had to really play, you know. And Max told me later that he had a hard time with that. He said, man, you know, I had to really play, man. I couldn't.
Yeah, there she is with the wild killer dog.
Oh, yeah.
Watch out!
Yeah, man. Come on, we're gonna be in a movie together. Okay? What do you say, man? When I played with Coleman Hawkins, it was a couple of weekends, but he didn't say that Roy Eldridge was on the gig too. And Roy, I felt, you know, I was thrilled, man, because we came off the stand one time, and Roy said, man, you're great, man, you're kicking my ass. That knocked me out, man, because he was a great drummer himself.
I'm in the movie. I made it. Oh, finally.
Yes, it's me, this guy.
Oh, yeah. I know. I thought I was a pain in the ass.